Well, overnight, Donald Trump was hit with his fourth indictment as a grand jury in Georgia issued a near 100-page indictment accusing the former president and 18 others of a sweeping criminal conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election results in the state.
Breaking news on former President Trump. He's been indicted for the fourth time in 5 months.
A Georgia grand jury handing up 41 charges against Trump and nearly 24 of his allies, accusing them of trying to overturn the 2020 election loss.
Prosecutors in Georgia pressing for a trial to begin within 6 months after a grand jury indicted former President Donald Trump on new criminal charges.
Another historic day, this time inside an Atlanta courtroom. In a sweeping, nearly 100-page indictment, former President Donald Trump, the leading candidate for the 2024 Republican nomination, was indicted today for trying to overturn his loss to Joe Biden in Georgia in the last election, a state Trump lost to Joe Biden by just under 12,000 votes.
All elections in our nation are administered by these states, which are given the responsibility of ensuring a fair process, and an accurate counting of the votes. The state's role in this process is essential to the functioning of our democracy.
We're going to be speaking on Donald Trump making history for being the first former president to get hit with the Rico Act after exposing Atlanta's most infamous district attorney.
Thank you for joining us. I'm here with the prosecutors and investigators.
Fani Willis is out for blood, and with some of Atlanta's biggest rappers on a hit list, she has now officially taken on her biggest target, former President Trump. Just one of 19 people within the 41-count indictment, Trump is joined by another notable name, Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City who changed the face of New York from the desolate war zone it once was. Trump alone is facing 13 counts within the indictment, ranging from violating Georgia's Rico Act to multiple counts of conspiracy to commit forgery, false statements, and writings. The alleged enterprise is Trump's political team, who are now being labeled a criminal organization, but this long list of trumped up charges comes only 1 week after Trump allegedly exposed some mystery in Fani's history.
They say there's a young woman, a young racist in Atlanta, she's a racist, and they say, I guess they say that she was after a certain gang and she ended up having an affair with the head of the gang or a gang member. And this is a person that wants to indict me. She's got a lot of problems, but she wants to indict me to try and run for some other office. What's going on in this country is, and by the way, wants to indict me for a perfect phone call.
Fani Willis has become known across the nation after the YSL indictment was announced, targeting one of Atlanta's biggest rap superstars, Young Thug. The indictment would allege he started a war between two of Atlanta's most violent blood sets after a rival gang leader was gunned down outside of a barbershop. This murder would result in over 30 violent acts of retaliation and would be the beginning of the indictment's investigation. The victim was 26-year-old Donovan Thomas, who was more commonly known as Big Nut. At the time of his death, he was alleged to be the leader of the Inglewood family Bloods in Atlanta, and prior to his death, he is alleged to have had a relationship with none other than Fani Willis. With one man hilariously stating Big T gon' free Thugger, another would say she definitely dropping that indictment now, and he was right. But before she would drop the indictment, Fani apparently sent emails to her staff about the alleged affair, calling it false and derogatory information. She'd claim a lot of money was spent to promote it through Atlanta and advised her staff not to speak on it. With Atlanta never letting us down when it comes to entertainment, one man would comment, "She locking YSL up for killing her side piece. This shit need to be a movie." Last claim against Fani was she's a racist, and with many, including myself, unsure of where the claim originates, the only information I could find regarding race pertains to Fani's father, John Clifford Floyd III, a man born in Inglewood, California, who raised Fani as a single father and member of the Black Panthers, and went on to become a defense attorney and civil rights activist. He's openly spoken against Trump through Facebook, referring to him as an orange buffoon.
Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis late Monday with the 41-count indictment against the GOP frontrunner and 18 of his allies.
The defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result.
The indictment, unsealed before cameras, also names former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Trump's one-time personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor, one of those accused of racketeering and conspiracy for allegedly putting in calls to pressure local officials and making false statements about election fraud. Overnight, Giuliani called the indictment part of a book of lies. Georgia's former Republican Lieutenant Governor, Jeff Duncan, testified before the grand jury yesterday.
My hope is that Americans believe us. My hope is that Republicans believe us. It is the second indictment in connection to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, and Shannon is here this morning with the details. Good morning.
Good morning, Brandon. The former president is questioning the timing and motive behind the indictment. Several of his well-known allies, like his former White House Chief of Staff, are also facing charges. A grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, indicted former President Donald Trump and 18 others just before midnight, accusing them of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in the state.
Bringing us the latest now on the fourth indictment of Donald Trump. The former president has been firing back online. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Tursky has the story. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning to you, George. We're still waiting to find out when former President Trump and his co-defendants are going to turn themselves in to authorities here. But what is becoming clear is the scope of the charges they face and how they're beginning to defend themselves. This morning, former President Trump intensifying his attacks on a criminal justice system that has now charged him in 4 places at once, lashing out on social media about a stolen election. Republican Governor Brian Kemp defending his state, posting the 2020 election in Georgia was not stolen. Trump is charged with 13 counts, including racketeering. The indictment putting him atop a criminal organization that also includes 18 aides, attorneys, and associates, and 30 unnamed co-conspirators, all allegedly conspiring to strong-arm Georgia into helping Trump cling to power. Rudy Giuliani peddled false claims about poll workers stealing ballots.
Quite obviously, surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine.
Giuliani now says he's being indicted for being a lawyer.
I thought when I was doing this, I was protected by the fact I was defending him.
Mark Meadows is trying to move the charges against him to federal court, arguing he was acting as part of his job as White House Chief of Staff. One of them, David Schaefer, says his conduct was lawful, appropriate, and specifically authorized by the U.S. Constitution. The district attorney wants to try them all together.
Do I intend to try the 19 defendants in this indictment together? Yes.
He has a decent argument here.
He tried a similar argument. The president tried a similar argument in the hush money case here in Manhattan.
Right, but 2 differences there. Number 1, he wasn't president at the time that the hush money stuff happened. And number 2, it's Donald Trump.
No recourse. The president cannot pardon for state offenses.
Correct. The president cannot pardon for state offenses. And by the way, neither can the governor, per se. It'd have to be a 5-year period. It has to be the Georgia Pardon and Parole Board, et cetera. So if he's convicted in Georgia, there really is no out.
Right next door in Georgia, the racist district attorney goes after me for a perfect phone call, even more perfect than the call I made to Ukraine.
This is the second indictment against the former president this month.